Welcome back to The Explainer. A massive shout out to Chakri right off the bat for the incredible research driving today's deep dive. We are jumping straight into a cinematic epic, the life and legacy of Ghantasala Venkateshwara Rao. You know him as the Ghana Gandharva, literally the heavenly singer. But as we're going to see, he was so much more than just a voice on a record. He was an absolute architect of emotion who pretty much built the golden era of Telugu cinema from the ground up. Okay, let's dive right into this because the sheer scale of his work is, well, it's just mind-boggling. 10,000, that is the number of songs he gave us. He rendered playback vocals for over 10,000 tracks. And he wasn't just singing in Telugu either. His voice crossed borders: Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, Tulu, Hindi, you name it. Starting in the 1950s, he didn't just participate in the industry, he literally dominated it. But honestly, it's not even the sheer volume that cemented his legendary status. It's the precision, the soul, and the absolute quality he poured into every single note.
Which brings us to part 1. The majestic voice arrives.
So you've got to wonder, how does a kid from a small village transform into a literal cultural icon? Well, you have to start with his instrument. The Indian film historian V.A.K. Rangarao called it simply the most majestic voice. And he wasn't just talking about pitch or melody. He was talking about raw, unparalleled vocal power. Ghantasala's voice could cut right through a massive auditorium. He could deliver intense pathos, fierce valor, or the most tender romance, all without ever getting drowned out by the orchestra. He built this deeply emotional connection with the masses because his voice felt so incredibly grand, yet somehow still so beautifully human.
But listen, that voice didn't just magically appear. It was forged in the fires of some serious struggle. Born in 1922 in Shoutapalli, he lost his dad really young. To even get formal music training at a college in Vizianagaram, he literally had to sell his gold ring just to afford the trip. And once he got there, he survived on one meal a day, completely relying on the charity of others. By 1942, his fiery spirit pushed him right into the Quit India movement. He was out there singing these incredibly moving, patriotic songs to mobilize crowds against British rule. And what did he get for it? 18 months in a rigorous prison. But that immense resilience paid off. In 1949, he landed his breakthrough as a music director and singer for Mana Desam, and boom, he was in the spotlight.
Moving right along to Section 2, Voicing NTR and ANR.
If you know the golden era of Telugu cinema, you know the silver screen was dominated by two massive rival superstars, and Ghantasala became the defining sound for both of them. It's wild to think about how he pulled off this vocal dichotomy. On one hand, you have NTR, famous for these epic, grand, mythic roles. For him, Ghantasala would drop into this authoritative, grounded baritone. It gave the songs such heavy gravitas, they almost felt like dramatic dialogue. Then, on the flip side, you've got ANR, the ultimate romantic, emotional lead. For ANR, Ghantasala would totally soften his delivery, injecting this nuanced, melodic warmth. He wasn't just singing, guys, he was voice acting. He cared way more about narrative authenticity than just flexing his vocal range. He tailored his timbre so flawlessly that audiences legitimately believed it was the actors themselves singing. And this brilliantly illustrates his absolute mastery over voice modulation. Take the legendary 1957 film Maya Bazaar and the iconic track Lahiri Lahiri. In this one single song, Ghantasala sings in character for ANR in the first stanza, then seamlessly switches gears to match NTR's exact persona in the second, and then, if that wasn't enough, caps it off by voicing a third actor, Gumidi, right at the end. To pull that off convincingly in one track for the biggest rival actors of the generation, that is an unbelievable feat of vocal control and theatrical understanding.
Now for Section 3, the classical innovator.
His legacy wasn't just about playback singing. He was a true musical pioneer. Before him, film music often let the melody overshadow the actual language. Ghantasala totally flipped that script. He put a huge emphasis on Telugu prosody, making sure the meter and the alliteration were always front and center. He completely redefined how padjams were rendered by compressing that long alap, and he was an absolute genius at blending Hindustani and Carnatic classical ragas. But here's the kicker. He wasn't just some strict traditionalist. He experimented fearlessly with Western-inspired tunes, proving he could seamlessly weave global sounds straight into the fabric of Indian cinema. I really want you to imagine the staggering technical brilliance required to do what this number represents. 1. That is the exact number of takes Ghantasala needed to record the song Shiva Sankari for the 1961 film Jagadekavirani Katha. Seriously, this track is universally considered one of the most notoriously difficult compositions ever attempted in Indian cinema. It's deeply rooted in the incredibly complex Darbari Kannada raga, demanding extreme breath control, insane classical scaling, and absolute high-octave perfection. And Ghantasala just stepped up to the microphone and nailed this towering masterpiece flawlessly, in a single, continuous take. It is just a moment of pure, unadulterated musical awe.
Let's jump over to part 4, a global phenomenon.
As we transition into the 1970s, it became pretty clear that a talent like his just couldn't be contained within national borders anymore. In 1970, India honored him with the Padma Shri, their 4th highest civilian award. The very next year, he kicked off this massive global tour, leaving audiences absolutely mesmerized across Germany, the UK, the USA, and Canada. But the absolute pinnacle has to be his 1971 performance at the United Nations. Just picture the sheer breathtaking grandeur of that immense assembly hall and imagine his majestic voice echoing all the way to the rafters. For that performance, he was awarded a UN Peace Medal. And, completely true to who he was as a person, he wasn't just touring for the fame. He actually took the proceeds from his concert in Germany and donated them directly to war refugee relief.
Which brings us to our final and most profound chapter, Section 5, the final spiritual gift. By the early 1970s, Ghantasala's health was really beginning to fail him. But even as his physical strength faded, his spiritual devotion just seemed to burn brighter. Literally, from his hospital bed, battling a severe illness, he took on this incredibly monumental task. He decided to musically adapt 106 key slokas from the Bhagavad Gita. He painstakingly set these ancient Sanskrit scriptures to classical Carnatic ragas. And what's amazing is that he consciously chose this highly restrained, pure vocal technique. He completely stripped away all the ornate theatrical flourishes. He focused entirely on crystal-clear enunciation and doctrinal precision. He wanted you, the listener, to grasp the direct, profound philosophy of Lord Krishna without ever getting distracted by vocal acrobatics. This was his ultimate act of pure devotion, recorded just before he passed. So the crucial point here is his fundamental philosophy as an artist, which is just beautiful. He firmly believed, and he said this often, that an artist should always be empathetic to social problems and has to use their art for social welfare. He didn't think a singer should just chase fame or wealth. You have to be empathetic to the world around you and use your gifts for the greater good. And he lived by that every single day until his passing on February 11th, 1974. He truly died like a karma yogi, working tirelessly for others through his art, right up to his very last breath. I want to leave you with this thought today. If your voice could outlive you, what eternal message would you leave behind? Ghantasala's masterwork, his rendition of the Bhagavad Gita, was actually released 2 months after he died. Today, decades later, that exact voice still plays daily in the sacred Tirumala temple, bringing spiritual solace to millions. That is the undeniable, eternal power of the Ghana Gandharva. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and a massive thanks again to Chakry for the brilliant research that made it all possible. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.